The crazy mountains of Montana do not care about your experience or your high-end hunting gear. They are a jagged altar of limestone and shifting shadows that seem to breathe when the wind dies down. People go into those peaks looking for elk. But sometimes, the mountains are the ones doing the hunting. In September of 2014, a man stepped into that wilderness with the confidence of a seasoned woodsman. He had the right boots, the right pack, and two friends who knew the terrain as well as he did. But the crazy mountains have a way of warping the familiar into something unrecognizable once the sun dips below the granite ridges. The plan was simple enough for a man who had spent his life in the brush. He would take a different route to the camp at Sunlight Lake, a shortcut through the high country while his companions took the lower trail. It was a decision made in the clear light of day, a decision that would eventually lead to a mystery that defies every law of logic we cling to. As he separated from his friends, the air didn't just get colder. It grew heavy, thick with a silence that felt like a physical weight pressing against his eardrums. The birds stopped singing, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath as he vanished into the tree line. He was carrying a heavy pack and a rifle, moving through a landscape he thought he knew. But within an hour, the world began to tilt. The landmarks he relied on seemed to shift their positions, the peaks huddling closer together as if to block his path. The first night in the wilderness is usually a test of endurance. But for him, it became a descent into a waking nightmare. The temperature plummeted toward freezing, and the darkness was so absolute it felt like being buried alive in cold velvet. He wasn't just lost. He was being steered. In the world of the missing 411, we see this pattern time and time again. A person with every reason to survive suddenly makes choices that look like madness to those of us sitting in our warm living rooms. But on that mountain, madness is just another word for the influence of something we cannot see. 3 days into the search, the first sign of his passage was found by a team of exhausted trackers. It wasn't a signal fire or a discarded wrapper. It was his boots. 2 sturdy, expensive hiking boots sitting side by side in the mud of a high mountain pass. They weren't tossed aside in a panic. They were placed. The laces were untied, the tongues pulled forward, sitting there as if the man had simply stepped out of them and floated away into the sky. No tracks led away from those boots in the soft, yielding earth. Only the boots remained, staring back at the searchers like hollow eyes. Think about the sheer physical agony of walking through the Montana backcountry in your socks. The ground is a jagged mess of scree, freezing mud, and waist-deep snow drifts in the higher elevations. No sane person chooses to go barefoot in a place that wants to kill them. And yet, there they were. The search grew in scale, bringing in helicopters with infrared sensors that could spot a field mouse from 1,000 feet up. They swept the ridges and the valleys, over and over, until the pilots knew every rock and fallen log by name. But the infrared saw nothing but the cold, indifferent stone of the crazies. The man was gone. The K9 units were brought in next, elite bloodhounds trained to find a scent in a hurricane. But when they reached the area where the boots were found, the dogs did something that sent a chill through the handlers. They didn't howl, and they didn't trail. They whimpered and tucked their tails, refusing to move an inch further into the trees. It was as if the dogs could sense a boundary that the humans could not see. A line drawn in the dirt that marked the end of our world and the beginning of something else. Something older. Something that doesn't leave a scent, miles away from where the boots were discovered. The searchers found his backpack. It was located at the top of a steep, treacherous ridge that would have been a challenge for a professional climber in full gear. How a man without boots managed to scale that rock face remains a question with no answer. The pack was leaning against a tree, untouched by scavengers. Inside the pack were his supplies, his water, and his extra clothing. Everything a man would need to stay alive was left behind. It was as if he had been stripped of his identity and his tools, one layer at a time, until there was nothing left but the raw, shivering soul. The investigation hit a wall of silence that lasted for 900 days. For nearly 3 years, the family waited for a phone call that never came, staring at the jagged horizon of the crazy mountains. The wilderness held its secret tight, refusing to yield even a single clue. And then, a rancher found the remains. They were located on private land, miles from the original search area, and in a direction that made absolutely no sense. The bones were scattered, bleached white by the high-altitude sun and the harsh Montana winters. He was found in an area that had been searched by ground crews during the initial disappearance. How do you miss a body in an area you have walked a dozen times? In the missing 411 cases, we often hear about the phenomenon of the body appearing in a previously cleared zone. It is as if the mountain decides when it is finished with you, and only then does it let you be found. The remains were found near a cache of gear that shouldn't have been there. His water bottle and a few other personal items were found tucked into a crevice, miles away from his backpack and miles away from his boots. The geography of his final days is a jagged line of impossible movements. A man walking in circles that span entire mountain ranges. There is a theory that the crazy mountains sit on a thin spot in the fabric of our reality. A place where the laws of physics and distance become suggestions rather than rules. Perhaps he didn't walk those miles at all. Perhaps he simply stepped through a doorway and came out somewhere he was never meant to be. The silence of the woods is not always the absence of noise. Sometimes, it is the presence of something so vast and so alien that our minds simply refuse to process it. We call it being lost because it is a word we understand. But what happened to him was something far more profound than losing his way. This pattern of discarded footwear and impossible travel is not unique to Montana. In 2014, a doctor named James McGrogan went missing in the mountains of Colorado while on a skiing trip with friends. He vanished in a matter of minutes, leaving behind no trail in the deep snow. His body was eventually found at the bottom of a cliff, miles away, with his boots missing and no signs of how he had traversed the brutal terrain. These cases are the echoes of a world we don't truly own. We build our cities and our roads, and we think we have tamed the wild, but the wild is just waiting for us to take a wrong turn. It is waiting for the moment we decide to take a shortcut through the high country. It is waiting for us to leave our boots behind. The story of the hunter in the crazy mountains ends with a few fragments of bone and 1,000 unanswered questions. There is no closure in the wilderness, only a cold realization that we are not the masters of this earth. We are merely visitors, and some of us are never allowed to leave. The mountains are still there, watching, waiting for the next person who thinks they know the way home. The shadows are growing longer now, and the wind is picking up off the ridges. If you ever find yourself in the crazies, and the birds stop singing, don't look back. Just keep walking. And whatever you do, keep your boots on. I have spent years looking into these files, and the more I read, the less I feel I know. Every time a case seems solved, another layer of high strangeness reveals itself. The numbers don't add up, the distances don't make sense, and the behavior of the lost defies every survival instinct we have. It is a puzzle with pieces that change shape while you are trying to fit them together. The missing 411 cases are a reminder of the fragility of our existence. One moment you are laughing with friends, and the next, you are a ghost in the machine of the natural world. There is a thin veil between our reality and the void, and in places like the crazy mountains, that veil is worn thin. Be careful where you step. The hunters who found the remains said the area felt different, even years later. They spoke of a heavy feeling, a sense of being watched from the trees when nothing was visible. It is a feeling that lingers in the places where these disappearances occur. A stain on the land, that time cannot wash away. We like to think that we have mapped every inch of this planet. But there are still dark corners where the maps mean nothing. There are still places where the light doesn't reach, and where the shadows have teeth. The story of what happened out there remains locked in the stone and the soil. A secret kept by the peaks. And so, we close another file. But the questions remain. Why the boots? Why the impossible distances? And why does the wilderness seem to target the most experienced among us? Perhaps it is because they are the only ones who provide a real challenge for whatever is out there. Good night, and stay safe in the trees. You never know when the mountain might decide it is your turn to go missing. The silence is coming, and it is louder than you think. The final resting place of the hunter was a lonely spot, far from the life he knew. It was a place of beauty and terror, where the earth meets the sky in a jagged line of limestone. He is home now, in a sense, part of the mountain that claimed him. But the mystery of his journey remains. A haunting melody played on the wind. The wind doesn't just howl in the crazies, it whispers. It whispers names of the gone, and it whispers warnings to the living. If you listen closely, you can hear the stories of 1,000 lost souls carried on the mountain air. They are stories of the missing 411. Every gear discovery, every bone found, is just another sentence in a book that has no ending. We are the readers, trying to make sense of a language we were never meant to speak. We search for logic in a place where logic has no power. We search for a man who was already gone long before he stopped walking. The tragedy of the Aaron Hedges case is not just the loss of a life. It is the loss of our sense of security in the world we think we know. It is the realization that the wilderness is not a park, but a predator. And the predator is always hungry. Keep your eyes on the trail, and your heart guarded. The shadows are moving, and the night is young. There is much more to uncover in the files of the missing. But for now, we leave the crazy mountains to their secrets. The sun is setting over the ridges now, casting long, skeletal shadows across the valley floor. The air is turning sharp, and the first stars are beginning to blink in the cold Montana sky. It is time to leave this place behind, before the mountain notices we are still here. Until next time, the boots sit in an evidence locker now, a silent testament to a journey we will never understand. They are clean, well maintained, and completely empty. They are the physical remains of a mystery that has no solution. They are the echo of a man who stepped out of his shoes and into the unknown. If you ever find yourself walking in the high country, and you feel that sudden, inexplicable urge to change your path, stop. Take a breath. Look at your compass. And remember the hunter from the crazies. Don't let the mountain guide you. Don't let the silence take your voice. The world is much larger and much stranger than we are led to believe. The boundaries are not as solid as they appear. And the things that live in the gaps are not always friendly. The missing 411 is a map of those gaps. Use it wisely. This has been a journey into the heart of the crazy mountains, a place where legends and reality collide. We have walked the path of the lost, and we have felt the chill of the unknown. The story is told, but the mystery remains. Stay alert, stay safe, and never underestimate the power of the wild. The mountains are tall, the woods are deep, and the secrets are buried in the snow. We will continue to dig, continue to search, and continue to ask the questions that no one wants to answer, because the missing deserve to be remembered. And the living deserve to know the truth. The truth is out there, somewhere among the peaks and the pines. It is waiting for someone with the courage to look, and the strength to see. But be warned, once you see it, you can never unsee it. The truth of the missing 411 is a heavy burden to carry. We leave you now with the sound of the wind and the memory of the hunter. May he find the peace in death that he was denied in his final days, and may we all find our way home. No matter how dark the path may become, the mountains are watching. Goodbye for now. But the shadows never truly leave. They are just waiting for the light to fade. Keep your fires burning bright. The silence is closing in, and the stars are the only witnesses left to what happened on that ridge. Every shadow holds a story, and every stone holds a name. The crazy mountains have many more secrets to tell, but those are for another time. Walk softly, for you tread on the memories of the lost. The trail ahead is long, and the night is cold, but the light of understanding is worth the journey. We find ourselves at the end of this chapter, but the book is far from finished. The missing are still out there, and so are we. Watching, waiting, and wondering, may your steps be sure and your compass true. For the wild is vast, and the shadows are deep. The hunter's journey is over, but ours continues. We will meet again in the twilight. Rest well. If you can,